is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
It's Monday, December 12th. As the intrepid John Hicks just pointed out, 12/12. Hadn't occurred to me.
12/12 today.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
I like that. Is that like the, it's like the champagne date every month. We look forward to it. You know, the 1st of January, the 2nd of February, the 3rd
We got
of
champagne
March.
in here?
You get to crush a bottle of champagne every time the numbers line up. You look like you had a bit. I was following you on social media, your Instagram, etc. You've been pedal to the metal all through the weekend. 'Tis the season for holiday parties. You've been spinning records all weekend.
We got lots of holiday parties, and not to toot my own horn or talk to advertisers who aren't yet with us yet, but shout out to ATB Financial. I did their huge Christmas party.
Yeah, what the hell are you doing, John? In the lead of the show, just name a bunch of people that don't pay to be mentioned on the show. That's bold.
Okay, a bunch of engineering firms,
Yeah.
just big parties, and people are so excited to finally mingle with their coworkers again in these settings, obviously.
So true.
Since COVID. So they've been, I'll use the word rager. I don't think I have yet on the show, but they've been ragers.
Yeah, and then there's the kind of the flip side of people that are like still not heading out, still not socializing to that degree. And we were out doing a number of different things this weekend, and it seems to be an uptick on people that are wearing masks as well. And I don't know if maybe that's probably something that you're seeing in your neck of the woods, Real Talkers, but let us know. And where your head's at in all of this, to talk at ryanjesperson.com. You and I are going to be next Friday together working the Apex Automation Christmas party, which I'm looking forward to. That's going to be a fun one. Did you pay any attention to what was going on at Commonwealth Stadium over the weekend?
No.
This is so cool.
The Big Air, actually.
The Big Air thing.
Yeah.
This FIS Big Air World Cup event. You can check out, if you follow me on Instagram, or if you don't, check it out, Instagram.com/Ryan Jesperson. I partnered with the team at Explore Edmonton and put together a reel for them. I'm showing you on my screen right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can check this out. So, John, I finally put together a reel, which was a big deal for me. And, Carrie, my wife, had to teach me how to do it. But, of course, there was no shortage of footage as the world's best big air snowboarders, big air competitors were launching off this enormous ramp.
This is crazy.
I mean, this took, they were talking about the scaffolding and the efforts that it took for the ground screw, if you want to call them that, to put this thing together. And then just the amount of snow that they were hauling up there, and they were using, there were all sorts of logistical challenges that they had. But these athletes, the men and women, they're competing in this FIS World Cup Big Air event. Remarkable stuff.
Modern day Evel Knievels, man. Is, one wrong turn and it's a broken leg, a clavicle.
Jeez, yeah, or worse. Yeah, we took our little guy Wyatt there. He's 7. He loves snowboarding. He takes lessons in the whole 9 yards. And I said, hey kiddo, you think maybe someday you might do something like this? He just goes, not a chance. He goes, not a chance. So there's no way he's going to be getting to that. Charles Adler is going to join us in just a second. And, of course, we're going to be talking. We mentioned this late last week, including on our Friday roundtable, our Real Talk roundtable, the group chat roundtable. That was a fun one.
Really fun.
The first one, I don't know how fun it was for you at the beginning because we had to do some shuffling. It's always amazing to watch you work. It was our first ever in-person roundtable, like in the history of the show.
3 people too.
So 4 people, including me, around this urban timber table, and that meant for you a lot of adjustments to make. We were figuring out our camera angles. We're still kind of settling in here, but you did a bang-up job, and so did our panelists, Jenny Adams, Harmon Kendall, and Jarrett Campbell, talking about gun control, Bill C-21. We spent a lot of time talking about Harmon's trip to Qatar. He was just back. He was at the World Cup. Some amazing results in those games over the weekend, of course, too. And we mentioned that in the context of C-21, I don't know if you feel this way, Real Talkers, but it seems like the conversation is boiling down to, and this is not a good thing, it seems to be boiling down to like rural versus urban, right? Or hunters versus downtown apartment dwellers. And I think that talk about gun control, gun laws, gun legislation in Canada needs to be about more than that. And so we thought we were taking a look at a few different points that people are making and a few different storylines. One of them is a reported uptick in the United States of women purchasing firearms, which I don't think is necessarily 100% positive.
Because I know the numbers show men are overwhelmingly buy and purchase more guns than women, right?
Yeah, well, and if you talk to the experts about why they think that's happening, they think it's happening because fewer women are feeling safe or more women are feeling unsafe. So it's not necessarily that 100% of the purchases are because of hobby shooting is up, but hobby shooting, recreational shooting, target shooting, clay shooting, the trap shooting they call it, is a thing, and it's a huge sport, and it's a popular sport, and quite frankly, it looks like a lot of fun. Using shotguns to blow these clay pigeons out of the air looks pretty sweet. Well, nobody does it better in Canada. You could argue that nobody's done it better on planet Earth than Dr. Susan Nattrass, who's going to join us in about a half hour's time. She's a 7-time world champion.
Wow. Yeah,
winner of the Lou Marsh Award, which, by the way, I didn't know that they're looking at renaming the Lou Marsh Award. You learn something new every day. That's a whole separate discussion. But Susan Nattrass was named Canada's Athlete of the year that she won that, an Officer of the Order of Canada. She's a huge deal in shooting, 6-time Olympian. So we thought we'd pick her brain on so-called gun culture. I reached out to her, and I loved what she said. We'll bring it up when we welcome her to the show. I said, we wanted to talk to you about so-called gun culture in Canada, and she replied, I didn't know that there was a gun culture in Canada. And so I think it's going to be a great conversation. Yeah. And, of course, we'll welcome the comments and the feedback and the observations from Real Talkers that are tuning into this live stream, whether that's, of course, on the Mixlr live streaming audio app that's presented by our friends at California Closets, or, of course, live streaming us on YouTube as well. Charles Adler coming up in just a second. I wanted to read this email before we go any further. This from MJ. MJ sent us this email just a couple of days ago to talk@ryanjesperson.com. This is absolutely launching us into this week of shows. Says thank you for getting real and talking about issues we desperately need to know more about. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And now that we know what we know, we cannot unknow it. We must adjust accordingly and continually. MJ says with a shortage of mental health workers, it's opportunities and assets like Real Talk that help us separate the fear and ignorance of issues from individuals who just behave ignorantly. Says, I feel further enlightened and more informed. That from MJ. You have no idea the power of that email and what that did for us. That filled our bucket, MJ, and we appreciate it. Charles Adler, in just a moment, wanted to remind you that the holiday sale continues. Our friends at McBain Camera, you can make them your destination for this holiday season. Unique gift ideas, they've got them covered. Like, what about a set of Pro Staff P7 10x42 binoculars from Nikon? The Nikon Pro Staff P7 gets you up close and personal with birds and wildlife, even as the fleeting winter daylight fades. You can save $60 on this powerfully portable binocular set, just $209.99 for the holidays. You can also save up to $600 on a huge selection of Nikon cameras and lenses right now at McBain. You can visit them in store, 6 locations, or chat with a team member online at McBainCamera.com. McBain, create to inspire. When I think of binoculars, I think of my dad back in the day. Yeah. Where we lived, where I was growing up, we used to have the odd blue heron in the name. It would touch down and it kind of look, I don't know if it was the same one every time, but we led ourselves to believe that. My dad would have the binoculars out and get these up close and personal views of those remarkable birds. Man, priceless experiences.
Great for watching big air competitions too.
Good point. I always see the people at football games. Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say up in the cheap seats, there's no such thing as cheap seats when you're watching hockey games. Yeah. Football, you can get affordable. Binoculars would be perfect. Hey, no matter what you're celebrating, Hanukkah's coming up in a week. Christmas coming up in a couple of weeks. There's birthdays, anniversaries, a DQ cake from the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, always guaranteed to be a big hit. You can enjoy layers of celebration with a DQ cake, totally customized from the locations in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, or Baseline Road. Make sure you follow them on Instagram, on Twitter to get the latest details. You can check out dqcakes.com. Use the drop-down menu to choose your location in Northwest Edmonton or a DQ in Sherwood Park. Hey, our friends at Park Power wanted to give you a heads up. They reached out to us with an email just a couple of days ago. Chris, who leads the team over there, said you got to remind Real Talkers, obviously with winter here and the cold and the dark days, it means that energy use, especially in the homes of Albertans, is on the rise. So if you're on the regulated rate or a variable rate for electricity, you're probably paying more than you have to right now. Just a quick heads up. He says Park Power's current fixed most electricity rate plans are almost half the cost, half of the regulated rate option. So if you switch over, you don't have to fear about being locked into a contract, especially when you're choosing that fixed rate plan. Customers can switch rates or cancel anytime for free, no penalty. But I'm going to tell you, you're not going to. Once you're a customer of Park Power, you're going to love it, I guarantee. Parkpower.ca is where you enter the promo code 2022-Real Talk to save $70 off your first bill at Park Power. And John and I mentioned we're going to be hanging out celebrating the season with the amazing team at Apex Automation coming up in just about a week from now. Their whole team environment dictates the culture of how they roll at Apex Automation. It's probably why they've tripled the size of their team at a time where so many other firms are dialing it back. It's because more and more people are seeing the value in giving people back their time. Through automation, of course, that works for clients, but Apex takes that position, almost a mantra of sorts, with their team members too. It's why they invest in things like game rooms in their offices, ping pong, pool tables, professional development opportunities for their team, including their professional engineers, individual offices when team members request instead of shared or open workspace, and of course, that great Christmas party that everybody buzzes about. You know, they're always hiring at Apex Automation. If you're feeling stagnant, locked in, uninspired, underappreciated at your current engineering or automation job, check out apexautomation.ca today. Well, I see our friend Charles Adler, you know, we send each other a lot of messages through the week. Number one, just because we're pals. And number two, because we're always looking for the most engaging and attention-grabbing and important content to tackle when he makes his regular Monday appearance here on the show. And Charles, as I noted to you just a few moments ago, you sent me a message at 11 p.m. They're not dinging my phone, by the way, and it's a mutual thing that happens here. 1 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 5:45 a.m. I said, I think I might have found the one person in Canada who sleeps less than I do.
Well, I did sleep 4 hours and 11 minutes last night. But I just want to put this up here just to remind you that you're really not commercial enough, okay? As far as I'm concerned, you just don't hustle enough. You almost never talk about these Real Talk mugs and some of the other great merchandise, and I just want you to, step up the game. And speaking of commercials, can you explain to me, and if I'm wrong about this, please disabuse me of my fallacious notion. But I just have the impression you don't have a tailor or either a custom tailor or a high-end place where people can get wardrobes like the kind you wear. Am I wrong about this?
Well, you've put me in an interesting position, Charles, because I did have a partner that has done remarkable business for many decades in the city of Edmonton, in the province of Alberta for that matter. We're not currently doing business together, but these relationships stand the test of time, and the commerce in the relationships ebb and flow. So I'm wearing a Lardini suit today, and this is perfectly cut by the amazing team at Henry Singer, who just announced, as a matter of fact, they're going to be opening a new flagship location in Edmonton's Stantec Tower, which is right outside Rogers Place Arena. They're expecting that to open in about a year. It's going to be absolutely beautiful.
Well, someday, if I'm a commercial success, I'd like to visit with Mr. Singer.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Well, hey, were you talking? I just wanted to make sure, because I was just doing some digging here at ryanjesperson.com, and then I clicked on the merch link, of course, because it's so convenient here to just click on the merch link. And then were you talking? You must have been talking about the Crescent mug, Charles, that you're holding, yes. which is that high quality 12-ounce ceramic mug. It's heavy, it's durable, and it helps you keep it real. We recommend you hand wash, depending on your dishwasher, but I'll tell you what, Charles, this thing arrives for the bargain price of $34, just over our cost, and of course shipping is always free when you pick up your merch, stocking stuffers, at ryanjesperson.com/merch. How is that?
I don't even hand wash my hands with my hands. It's a dishwasher all the time.
Yeah, okay.
For me. So I've had it in there, and
it's standing the test of time.
It's certainly standing the test of time. But I mentioned all this stuff about what was once known as haberdashery and wardrobes and apparel and all those fancy schmancy words, because I am the son of a tailor, and that's where I learned my stuff. I went to Adler's Tailor Shop University, and I'm proud of it.
I will say that, for a long time I was, buying suits off the rack. And when you start to invest a little bit more, and it is an investment for sure, when you start to invest a little bit more and you start wearing suits that are perfectly cut for you, you'll never go back. There's something about it. There's something about the way that you walk down the street. There's something about the way you sit in a meeting. There's something about the way you carry yourself when you're wearing something that's perfectly cut for you.
Well, I'm highly attracted to the name Singer, Henry Singer, your tailor. One of the reasons for that is because, of course, the Singer sewing machine. And I guess, I don't know if people want to know this because some people would call it child labor, but as a 7-year-old, that's when I first started, slaving over a Singer sewing machine. And that, of course, helped the family. I mentioned the child labor thing because later on when I graduated from Adler's Tailor Shop University and went to McGill University, the conversation came up with one of my professors, and he asked me, when do I think that I'll be starting to work? Something about employment came up, and I said, Hoss, I've been working since I was 7 years old. I was, fixing clothes, on a sewing machine and throwing coal into the boiler and doing all the other chores, picking up, delivering, at first on a bicycle, later on a car. I probably didn't have a license at the time, probably, but I was just working for my dad. And he got all self-righteous and sanctimonious and said that my father was exploiting child labor. And I won't tell you about the rest of it, but I took care of business.
Well, this is actually a fascinating conversation. I can't say that it's come up recently, but you'll remember back in the Rachel Notley era of government in Alberta, they had a Bill 6. It was like a farm safety bill. I can't remember the actual name of it. And it was extremely controversial. It on one hand, it probably shouldn't have been had there been better communication. And I think that at that time, Notley acknowledged it with the benefit of hindsight that it had been spun by opposition critics, then the Conservatives, that the government wasn't consulting farmers, that it wasn't consulting the rural folks that would be most impacted by this. The government, for its part, saying, we're trying to ensure that if farm workers, fall into a manure spreader and lose a limb, that they're covered. Like, we're trying to, ensure that people are working safe on family farms. The communication errors there were very evident, but I think it started a conversation in the urban areas, almost in a way that there was like an epiphany for people that didn't realize how much work or how much contribution happens on farms from kids. And it's pretty regular, on a farm for a 10-year-old to drive the truck out to the swather to like drop off sandwiches, or it's a pretty normal thing for a 9-year-old to move the tractor from the dairy barn over to there. You know what I'm saying? And anyway, though times do change, and obviously we have laws for a reason and safety regulations, and we learn over time. The fact of the matter is there are still in family businesses in cities and rural areas kids that are working for their parents because that's the way that the family operates.
Well, despite people calling me super woke and socialist and all that kind of nonsense, I'm a family business conservative. That's what I've been all my life. I mean, I realize that today's conservative movement is on a planet that I can't find with a Hubble telescope. That's their problem. I am who I am. Was it Popeye who used to say that?
Yeah,
Popeye the Sailor Man?
something
I am
like
what
that.
I am?
Yeah,
something like that.
I'm having to brush up on my Popeye because my little guy's become fascinated. Well, I tried to sneak it in because we're trying to get him to start eating greens like spinach. And I said, you know about Popeye? He was like, who's Popeye?
But anyway, obviously I have a connection to family business because that's where I come from. And so as you say about whether it's a 9 or 10-year-old driving the tractor, the truck, the combine, whatever it is, I don't have any problem with that, and I'm not into. But I realize, I understand that some of this is about insurance, some of this is about a lot of things, and many of these so-called family farms aren't really family farms anymore. Yes, there's a family, but obviously they hire a number of workers, often migrant workers. We don't want them to be exploited anyway. I don't want to download a whole bunch of stuff on that. I just want to say that if you're on it, whether it's any kind of family business, whether it's a family business I worked in, just my dad and me, and a bunch of businesses just like that. If someone had come in to tell my father that there was something wrong with the idea of me helping out with the boiler or the press or the sewing machine, my father would have, asked himself, whether or not he's come to a free country. There it is. Now you're hearing me talking like a convoy guy, but that's how he would have felt about it. And he certainly was not an ultra conservative. He was just just like me, a traditional person. We're running a family business. No, there's nothing dangerous about what my son is doing, and what's dangerous is telling families that they can't be families.
Yeah, sure. What did your dad call you? Were you Charlie, Charles, Chuck?
He called me by my Hungarian name.
Oh,
and my Hungarian name is Sonyi, which is short for Sándor, which is Hungarian for Alexander. So
wow.
That's what he called me.
I'm imagining little Sonyi shoveling coal into the boiler. That is that's some old school stuff, man.
I enjoy doing that. Now I don't want to get into it. I don't want to be pro coal or anything like that.
Oh, jeez, Chuck, speak freely. Whatever. People used to burn street lanterns with whale fat. Yeah, whale blubber.
Coal was very important to our lives because it was very important for the boiler to create steam for the steam press. And the steam press was one of the most valuable things we had. And there was nothing like, someone would come in and they'd want to have their pants pressed quickly. My father would, throw me the pants or the suit or whatever. And I'd get out the big, either the steam iron or the steam press. But I had fun doing that. I felt productive. I felt like I was contributing. So I'm not making apologies for it. I'm just saying that, it's unfortunate sometimes, if people are attacking families for having their families in the business. But it's if we got into it for another moment, there are a bunch of small businesses. I don't care what city, community you're talking about, where kids are obviously involved in the business. And I don't see what Pierre Pauly would call the gatekeepers. I don't see gatekeepers walking into bakeries and restaurants and telling the families, most of whom are immigrant families, that they can't have their kids working there. And if they did start to do that, I'd really have a problem.
Yeah, I know. I think that you can't be pro-family business and start cracking down on stuff like that, performative measures, you might call them. I wanted to ask, we use this Monday as an opportunity. Sometimes we'll take the top story, national or provincial, what have you, and hit it head on. And sometimes you and I will muse and chew the fat and wax poetic. I was curious what prompted this. You tweeted this about 6 o'clock this morning, just a couple of hours ago. You see, I keep waiting for the trend to pass. At the moment, still blown away that many people I thought I knew well pre-COVID have become crackpots. You say, I know I'm not alone. At one time, I knew very few people who joined cults and became brainwashed. Now it almost feels like an epidemic. What prompted this? Was this your? I saw you and Theo Fleury. It seems like there's kind of this thing happening.
Well, there's a classic example. I used to think of Theo as a best friend, and he's gone crackpot on me. The only thing I giggle because he calls me. For whatever reason, he's decided to call me Boxcar Willie. Someone I interviewed because one of the many things I did in my life was I was a country DJ. In fact, I was doing 3 different jobs back then. So when I was a country DJ, I had to use a different name.
Yeah, Johnny knows what's up.
And Willie Nelson was my hero. Not Boxcar Willie. I like Boxcar Willie, a great character, but Willie Nelson was my hero at the time. But I couldn't call myself Willie Nelson, obviously. So I called myself Bill Nelson. It's 3:30 at CFGM in Toronto, right? And I'm Bill Nelson, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And I always used to say "rather" instead of "rather," and it was a big joke. And we just had a great time every Sunday afternoon spinning country tunes. But anyway, I like Boxcar Willie, and so when Theo Fleury for some reason decides to, I don't know if he's trying to disparage me, whatever, give me nicknames. Donald Trump and all the people on sort of on that planet give everybody a nickname that's supposed to be a put down. I don't see it as a put down. I love Boxcar Willie, and yes, I'm scrapping a little bit with Theo because Theo believes that COVID is a hoax, and Theo on Twitter decided to try to accuse the people who were let go from AHS, accused them of crimes. He said they're lucky they were just let go. They should be prosecuted. And I simply said on Twitter that when you don't have any evidence and you're accusing people of crimes, that is a crime. That's defamation. Now it's not often very it's not often prosecuted. And I said later that I don't think Theo Fleury would ever be prosecuted because it's not in the public interest to make Theo Fleury a martyr. But putting that aside, if you want to accuse somebody of a crime without evidence, that is a crime, and that's something people, I think it might be instructive to Canadians. But it's not just Theo; it's a number of people, and to some extent, it's the Danielle Smith thing. I don't want to, get into all of it, but I was just so damn disappointed because she is one of the people I saw as a rising star, a rock star. When I worked with her Global Sunday, hell, when I exited the show, I recommended that she take over. I mean, I definitely would not have made that recommendation. I wouldn't have had her on the show in the first place if I thought she was, loony. And she wasn't, she was just the mainstream conservative, which is exactly where I was. I had a great comfort level with her. But every day, I mean, and I thought this past weekend, the last straw for me was when she said that, the Sovereignty Act, had it existed and had they had their act together, could have been used to stop Justin Trudeau from imposing paper straws on Albertans, imposing paper straws, and the kids can't be drinking out of the root beer floats with the paper straws. I mean, how ridiculous!
But here's the thing, though, and this was on her radio show this weekend. She started talking about this in the context of essentially. I'm skipping a few steps here, but how the Sovereignty Act could be applied, and basically saying like nobody asked the provinces whether or not they wanted to implement this. The feds just came in. Nobody asked the provinces if they could have found a unique or innovative way to recycle. But here's the thing, Charles, is that's the type of example. It's not a metaphor. That's a real example that would actually resonate with people. Like she said it on the weekend. And then now everybody's talking about it. And I think that it's ridiculous to suggest that the government's first priority, Bill 1, should have been to address or to introduce legislation that could have addressed outlawing plastic straws. And that's certainly not what they ran the campaign on. That's certainly not what she put in front of people. But the average citizen wants to hear something. The radio coaches, content coaches, they call it the dog shit on the sidewalk. You want to talk about things on the radio that everybody can relate to. If it was a children's show, we would say gum on the sidewalk, something everyone stepped on and it stuck to their shoe. We can all relate to it, and people are frustrated with paper straws. And so there you have it, and it resonates, and you start to build support. The critics will always say it's ridiculous, and the supporters will say, there you go.
Some paper straws, because it's amazing what you can do with paper. I mean, there's this thing called cardboard, but there are a number of paper straws that are perfectly adequate. They're being used all over the world. They have been used for a long time. I think, frankly, a lot of places are buying low quality, shitty paper straws, and that's the deal. I mean, I was drinking. There's nothing I wouldn't suck through a straw when I was growing up, and I sucked it all through paper straws. We didn't have plastic straws. The other thing about plastic is you can use recyclable plastic. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but the idea that you need something that's, borderline assaulting and maybe assaulting the Constitution to deal with the straw thing, I mean, it's a straw man argument. I understand what you're saying about the dog shit on the sidewalk, and it creates a lot of talk and all of that. But the idea that you need to, get into a fight with the federal government over straws, I think is absurd.
All right, we're going to talk to one of Canada's greatest all-time athletes in just a moment. So we're on the clock, but I did want to ask you about this, Chuck, because I saw that by way of your Twitter account, you shared an opinion piece by Ezra Klein that ran in the New York Times just yesterday, The Great Delusion Behind Twitter. And you shared a link, by the way, that allows even non-subscribers of the Times to check it out. They can follow you on Twitter at Charles Adler. But I wanted to talk to you about that just quickly in the context of what we saw from Elon Musk, obviously synonymous with Twitter these days. Over the weekend, a tweet yesterday, and I just kind of shake my head perpetually in a way. Elon Musk tweeting, my pronouns are prosecute/Fauci. This is Dr. Anthony Fauci prepares to wrap up his tenure. And I thought, number one, to use a platform like Musk has, arguably, I mean, you could even argue his platform's bigger than the president of the United States. I mean, he may have the biggest. Yeah, he's got the biggest platform in the world, probably.
He's got the biggest bullhorn on the planet, and later on he doubled and tripled down on it. He accused Fauci of killing. millions of people.
Well, and here's the thing is, like, it's one thing to call for, like, Anthony Fauci to be prosecuted and to introduce all the sort of everything that comes with that and the vaccine and all that. But then also to drag in pronouns into the mix. Like, it's just like an added...
dragging in pronouns because it's something that, once again, that I was talking about the conservative movement on that planet that I can't find with the Hubble telescope. Those guys are into the homophobia and the transphobia and this whole business of... anyway... That's what he's talking about. You know, he's talking about the pronouns, and some people, you know, I don't want to give the dog his day. I just want to say that group of conservatives, which unfortunately is getting larger in America, they're called the MAGA crowd, and of course we've got the same wannabes over here. They love the idea of attacking people who are trans people, you know, just LGBTQ people. Period. They love attacking them, and that's what Elon Musk is playing to over there.
Yeah, Charles Adler every Monday. Both of us still on Twitter for now. You can find him there almost 24 hours a day, just like me. It's always great to see your face, my man, and thanks for the plug on the coffee mugs.
Great to see you, and great to see you in Mr. Singer's threads. Mr. Singer,
yeah,
you need to become a courageous client of Real Talk.
Yeah, I think you're right. I will be sending them that link to this. That's Charles Adler every Monday right here on the show. I see in our live chat, Shane says, Ryan's still playing apologetic for Danielle Smith, I see. I hope I don't have to, like, spell this out, but when I'm analyzing or evaluating someone's political or communication strategy, I'm not endorsing it.
No.
I'm not apologizing for it. I know that maybe some people sort of need things, like, really spelled out for them when they listen to talk shows. I'm explaining why she may invoke that because it resonates with people. And I probably won't spell it out every time, but when I see people that sort of don't understand the role that a talk show host plays, asking questions, getting people in, getting people on the record, I want to make sure you understand what you're signing up for when you watch or listen to a show like this. We take things we see around us and we analyze them and we debate them and we talk about them. That's the whole point. That's the entire mandate of a show like this.
I mean, we could just agree and you could hear the same chatter every day.
We could just do what the news does and just, like, read the headlines, and in today's news, here's what they did. We want to know the why, right? We've been saying for years, quite frankly, on talk shows I've hosted, like, knowing the headlines isn't enough. You've got to talk about it.
Ooh,
and that's what we do. By the way, I saw that the whole paper straw thing, like, lit a fire in the live chat.
Yeah, and I knew you were going to bring it up with me because I'm like, you know, me and my wife, the big environmental people, whatever.
Well, no, you're just good people. You're just responsible.
But the straw thing is so hard. Like, paper straw's been around since the 1800s. Before they were plastic, they were paper.
Right.
Paper straws, yeah, I try and use them as much as I can. And I like you go to restaurants now, sometimes they ask, would you like a straw or not? I like that. Paper straws, if you go in the realm of plastic, they're way down at the bottom for causing environmental impacts. I think it's like 7% of all the plastics that affect the environment.
The straws?
Yeah. So the first one, obviously, food waste, like food containers, etc., candy bar wrappers, all that stuff. Second, bottle caps. Bottle caps are a huge one. But I was reading Katie Ingram, actually. I saw a tweet from her yesterday, and it made me think, is that disabled people really need plastic straws because they're bendable and it's easier for them to drink. So paper straws are a big no-go for them. So that made me reconsider, like, you know, when we go to think about these things, who they impact and stuff like that, especially since we had Brad on the other week. Brad
Barco, for International Day for Persons with Disabilities. That was a great interview, by the way, last week.
And straw's just such there's no right answer. They're small. They can stay in the ocean for like 2-3 years. They get in everything.
Well, it's not only that, it's the plastic breaks down, and then you get these nanoplastics, right?
Yeah, and it's destroying the oceans. But at the same time, they're at the bottom of the totem. I don't want to say that. They're at the bottom of the list for things that we need to get rid of in plastics. We need to. I was seeing some other tweets this weekend about people who say we need to leash lids. Like, we need to make drinkable water bottles and et cetera, like Gatorade. So the lid stays on, like it pops up, but it's attached. Yeah. Because bottle caps are like the worst. They're like second to food waste. And food waste is like, we can't really get rid of that. Like candy bars, chip bags, food containers, they make everything food waste less. They make everything easily accessible. There's no way we're going to really break that down and get rid of that as much as we can. But
a friend
we should
of mine,
do a whole show.
A friend of mine, we were talking about the bottom of the totem pole thing. He's Indigenous, and how people are sort of being encouraged to maybe like.
I'm just trying to be better.
Lose that out of it. No, but listen, here's what the point he said to me. He said if more people learned about totem poles, they'd understand that the bottom of the totem pole is where the most power resides.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting one. So the phrase has been off forever. Remember some of the entrepreneurs and the innovators and the designers that when the paper versus plastic straw debate really kind of kicked up 5 years ago or so, and some jurisdictions in the U.S. started outlawing plastic straws and the like. People were coming up with like the custom, like the rose gold or the stainless steel reusable straw that people would like bring themselves to restaurants.
We did that as well.
You had your own?
Yeah, we did the bendable ones that you put into like a container and it goes on your keychain. It's very small, and then you take it home and clean it. And I see someone here saying that disabled people can use metal straws, but then like, do they carry them around everywhere with them? I'm talking about when someone with a disability goes to a restaurant and they order a drink and it's hard for them to drink it. They're going to need that plastic bendable straw, right? And Katie Ingram, we should put it up later in the show, but she had a whole thread detailing it this weekend, and it really made me think.
Yeah. You can let us know what you think about this talk at ryanjesperson.com. See, it worked, right? The plastic straw example, it worked. It's got people talking about it. Before we get to Susan Nattrass, I wanted to let you know I'm aware of allegations that were made over the weekend following a meeting of the Athabasca University Board of Governors, where a member of the Students' Union claims the chairman of Friesen Brothers, a member of that board, made a racist statement in the context of international students. I take these allegations very seriously. Real Talk and our parent company, Relay, have zero tolerance for racism of any kind. The transcript of that board meeting has not yet been made public, but I did speak with Mike Loveson personally on Saturday to clarify exactly what was said. And on Sunday, he released this statement, quote, I understand that a member of the AU student community who attended a public meeting of the Athabasca University Board of Governors, of which I am a board member, claimed in a social media post that I made a racist comment during that meeting. The allegation is false. The accusation runs counter to who I hold myself to be as a citizen of this community. I strongly denounce all forms of racism in all my matters, whether it be personal, business, or through my community contributions, with respect to all, signed Mike Loveson. Now, I understand that Athabasca University intends to release a statement sometime today, and we will continue to monitor this situation closely. Our friends at Local Environmental Services want to encourage you to keep it local. If you're in an Alberta or Saskatchewan community, in particular Edmonton, Whitecourt, Regina, and area, looking for garbage and recycling management, landfill services, water hauling, vacuum trucks, fencing, portable toilets, you name it, you get more when you keep it local. Some people say it's garbage, but not to them. They believe communities deserve better service, better prices, and more support for local causes. You can check out how they can help. Request a quote today at localenvironmental.ca. Don't forget, if you've got something to get off your chest, send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Trash Talk every Friday, presented by our friends at Local Environmental Services. And if you're looking to transform your outdoor space next spring, you already have the big plans. What kind of a cool Christmas gift would it be to put an Eden landscaping letter under the tree? Hey, what a stocking stuffer to hire a custom landscape builder with more than 20 years of on-the-ground experience in Edmonton and area. You want to know what they can do for you? Check out their services at landscapeedmonton.ca. Edible garden boxes, excavation, hardscaping like stone and tile work, retaining walls, water features, you name it. Outdoor kitchens, how's that for a Christmas gift? You can find Mike and his team online at landscapeedmonton.ca. Well, we're always looking for angles here on the show to help us better understand national news stories, to gain informed insight on issues that impact the lives of everyday Canadians. Now, whether or not you own a firearm, you probably know that the federal government is looking to change Canada's gun laws. Bill C-21 is described as the gun control bill, and we've been taking this from a number of different angles over the past couple of weeks on the show. This interview is one I've been looking forward to for a long time. Dr. Susan Nattrass is a 7-time world trap shooting champion. She's a 6-time Olympian. She has been Canadian champion more than 40 times. She also happens to be a medical researcher in osteoporosis. She's an officer of the Order of Canada. She was Canada's Athlete of the Year in 1981, as well as Canada's Female Athlete of the Year in 1977 and 1981. She has represented Canada internationally for more than 50 years. What a huge honor to welcome Dr. Susan Nattrass to Real Talk. Thank you for making time for us, Doctor. And it's wonderful to see your face.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. My pleasure, I hope.
Oh, well, I will tell you what. I was watching some past interviews you did. I saw an interview that you did ahead of the Montreal Olympic Games. You've, of course, competed in the Pan Am Games. Your passion for the sport is very evident, and you've been a huge ambassador for the sport as well. What got you into trap shooting? This is basically clay pigeons and shotguns, right?
That's it. I grew up with it. My father took up trap shooting when I was 5 years old. And so our family vacation was going to trap shoots. Some people get to go to the lake. We went to trap shoots. And so I just grew up with it. My older brother competed. When I was 12, I convinced my father that I should compete, and my younger brother wanted to compete. So that's what we did.
Your dad competed for Canada World Championships a number of different times, right? So I mean, this was some high level coaching that you were getting.
Yeah, and he was in the '64 Olympics. So my father loved the sport, and I mean, he still went out competing until like he passed when he was just about 87, and he was still competing when he was 86. And still telling me what's his scores and how he was doing. And oh yeah. And he was an excellent coach.
I wanted to play this. This is courtesy of the CBC. I don't know if you'll remember this. This was an interview that no, this is great. This is great. This is ahead of the Olympic Games in 1976. And this is you talking about your sport and what you love about it. And there's a gender-based comment in here as well, which brought a smile to my face. Here you are.
I was raised with trap shooting. My father and my brother shot. And I just always wanted to try it. I just got involved with it. I don't think women have to prove anything in shooting. We're accepted. We're being given an opportunity to compete. We're taking it. And as long as we do our best and don't cop out with little excuses for why we don't do well.
I love that. Don't cop out with little excuses. Did you have significant gender barriers to overcome in this sport?
Well, it's interesting. I did and I didn't. For the most part, this is one of the advantages of being a Canadian, is that women were always competing. I mean, I grew up in Calgary and then in Edmonton, and I played junior high sport. I played high school sport. I played university sport. And so, the opportunity was there. Where the problem came, let's say internationally, would be that, women, we had women's world championships starting in 1962. So there really wasn't a problem to compete in the world championships. In the Olympics, in 1968, 68, Nuria Ortiz was the first woman in skeet to compete in an Olympics, because at the time it was mainly men only, but it was open, but only men were competing. Then in 76, I was the only woman in the Olympics with 51 guys. So that part, it was just tough to make your national team. So I fought for 5 years in the 90s to get a separate event for women in trap and skeet.
What have you seen over the years? I mean, we mentioned in your introduction, you've competed for Canada internationally, I think 53 years, over a half century, which is remarkable. You are truly, to win Canada's Athlete of the Year, to be clear, I mean, you look at the names on that list through history. I mean, you are, this is the cream of the crop, Doctor. And I mean, it really is Canada's Athlete of the Year. As you take a look at the sport present day, in particular, the involvement of women, but generally speaking, the popularity of the sport, what do you see and what do you read into it?
Well, what's exciting, it took me like this 5 years. Women were always accepted and were competing. And then they made some rule changes in 92 that said women couldn't compete at all in the Olympics in trap and skeet. And that's when I started my 5-year battle. But what's been so wonderful for me is to see what happened. I mean, after, quote, I won the battle, according to the Secretary General of the ISSF, the International Shooting Sport Federation, it's so neat. Women are full-time competitors. That's their job. I went to Qatar in 2007 and they had a national team, and all these women, their job was to compete in trap shooting, which I thought was amazing since I never had that. And then women compete full-time. It's their occupation. They get full-time coaches. They get financial opportunity, the opportunities. They can go to competitions and they're not stuck at home. So they get medical services. They get everything that the guys get, and they get prizes. And it's really exciting to see that this whole area has opened up.
I'm trying to think of, I just want you to know that I was doing as fulsome of a preparation as possible to talk to you. It's like, because I might kind of weird you out a little bit, how many videos and interviews of you that I've already watched. But there was another one.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I should have made a note of it. I think it was maybe after LA in '84, something like that. But anyway, the cameras got you at the airport, and you're grabbing your bags. You're just kind of like the Jane Q. Public there. You're just the average citizen. You're getting your bags off the luggage thing, and off comes the big shotgun in the case, by the way, which I thought was kind of funny. You just check your shotgun, no big deal. But they asked you about the point I wanted to make was they asked you about funding for athletes, and you've long been an advocate. You made a comment there about how you believed that you didn't necessarily. You pointed out that there weren't any Canadian athletes getting rich at that point, but you thought that it was important that there be equal funding, regardless of what sport it was or regardless of who the athlete was. That's something you've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's not happening. In Canada, funding. Well, I know all the shotgun shooters and the shooters. I mean, we pay everything. We pay our own way to competitions. We pay our own ammunition. We pay our entry fees. We pay everything, and that's been going on for quite a while now, and that's a shame, because it certainly limits the possibilities. We have some good young shooters that can't afford that, and that's tough. And then when you compare us to other sports, then that's it's outrageous. We're just so out of it.
I think just because to state the obvious, it's just not a sport that's like on a lot of people's radar, right?
You mean it's not like hockey?
Yeah. But I'll tell you, like, it's fascinating to watch, and the skill. I mean, they talk about baseball players. Everybody tries to talk about like what's the greatest feat that's required in professional amateur sport. Like, what's the hardest thing to do in sport? And a lot of people have said maybe trying to hit a fastball in baseball. Mm-hmm. But I watched a lot of it. I mean, how fun was it, by the way, for you to host Rick Mercer a few years ago? That was like,
oh my God,
wildly entertaining.
So fun.
But
and you know what? He actually did hit the first two targets.
Come on. I thought that was...
Yeah, people thought it was set up, but it wasn't.
Really?
He actually hit the first two targets. I was so excited.
Well, maybe the sport's easier than we thought. No, I'm just joking. Joking. But I was going to say, of all the things, I think that what you do might be... I mean, I guarantee people are going to be Googling and YouTubing you after they hear this interview. I mean, the speed at which you call for it, can you use... I don't know the right terminology.
Okay. So in trap, in international trap, we have 15 machines underground.
Okay.
In front of you. We're 16 meters back. And when I'm on post 1, it comes out of machines 1, 2, or 3. When I'm on post 2, it comes out of 4, 5, 6. And all of them are set differently. And so it goes about 65 miles an hour away from you, various heights, various angles. And so you're standing there, you have your shotgun up, and you call, and then you pray. No, you call, then you see it, and then you move.
So what, like, the average sort of incident, or the average situation from the time that you call, like you say, pull, right? Is that what you say? You say,
yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, but you can, so you could be like, or like whatever you say. So you say pull. How long from the time on average that you would say pull to when you pull the trigger? Like it's like less than a second.
My father, when I first started, would time me, and if I called and hit it at 0.5 or 0.6 of a second, I would hit it. If I was at 0.8 or 0.9, I'd miss it.
Wow. And so you talk about, I mean, the weight training that you would do and the coordination and the muscle memory. I mean, in one of the interviews I saw you talking about, even when it was too cold to train outside and to shoot, you would just work on raising your shotgun. You would just work on raising it up. I mean, it's fascinating training.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that's stressed a lot when you're teaching someone or when you're in the sport is doing dry firing. You bring the gun up, move it, bring it down, bring the gun up, and they always recommended at least 25 times a day.
Wow.
I never did that, but it's a really good idea.
Well, whatever you did was working. We've got some speculation on our live chat right now. The audience members watching live are assuming or guessing that there probably weren't very many gophers on the Nattrass family property when you were growing up. Is that accurate? Yeah.
Yeah. My father loved to hunt. That was his passion. And it did not go down to his children.
Is that right?
I remember when I was about 8, my father took my mother and my brothers and I hunting, and my father and my brother hunted, shot, and my younger brother and I were supposed to be the retrievers because we didn't have a dog. And so I remember going out holding hands with my younger brother, going out in the field. We came to this duck. We both started crying. My mother and father came running, and that's the last time my younger brother ever went hunting. And I didn't go hunting until I was in my 30s when some friends talked me into it.
Okay. Well, hey, this kind of sets the table then for us to talk about C21. And I was joking with the audience earlier in this show when I was mentioning your appearance, and I said I had reached out to you in an email. Appreciate you getting right back to us. And I said I wanted to talk to you about Bill C-21 and gun laws and legislation and trends in recreational competitive shooting and the gun culture in Canada. And you replied, you said, I didn't know there was a gun culture in Canada. You've lived in Canada and the U.S., correct?
Yes.
You've practiced your medical research in the beautiful state of Washington. Can you talk to us about the differences that you've seen with so-called gun culture or what you understand it to be?
Well, it's so different. How do I say that? I mean, I read, after you contacted me, I went through the 307 pages.
What?
Of the C-21 just to see what guns were being banned. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, going back to the difference in the culture. I don't know. I think in Canada, it's just so okay if someone's a hunter or if they're a competitor. We do it. I mean, we abide. I think most people, or the majority of people, all abide by the rules where you keep your gun locked up in one locker someplace, and then your ammunition locked up someplace separate. And then when I go to the gun club, I put it all together. I go put it in my car, in the trunk of my car, and I go to the gun club. And I know I'm sounding sort of strange, but it's not a big deal. In the States, and maybe it's because there's so many people, it is a big deal. I mean, they're fighting that, oh no, I want my gun to be out in the open, and I want this and I want that. And I'm not expressing myself very well. Sorry.
No, I think you are. I mean, I think there's you could be like the most hardcore hunter, the biggest shooting enthusiast, and still not, I feel inclined to fight for your right to sling an AR-15 over your shoulder while you go to Dairy Queen. I mean, like but I've got friends. I mean, Susan, like a very good friend of mine, he's a voting Democrat for what it's worth. He's also a member of the NRA. And when we're out in Seattle, he legally carries a pistol. He carries a handgun on his ankle, and he's a very good friend of mine. We are worlds apart on how we view guns. I'm not anti-gun. I don't know a lot about guns. To be honest with you, you've probably heard this a million times, I'm a little bit intimidated around guns.
You see, that's one thing. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah, no, please do.
A really good point. I think, and it's going to sound very controversial, but I think everyone should learn how to shoot a gun. I prefer shotguns. I've tried a pistol and scared the heck out of me. I was raised with rifles and shotguns, but mainly shotguns. But I think everyone should learn how to do it. Whether they ever do it again or not, doesn't matter. But I think if you learn how to handle a gun, like in Canada, we have our courses, our firearm safety courses.
Yeah.
I think if everyone took it, it would educate people, and it would take some of the fear out. Instead, it would be a healthy respect. And that's how I was raised, and my brothers were raised. We were raised with a healthy respect for firearms and how to be safe. And I think that's what we see at gun clubs across Canada and in the United States. But there's that healthy respect. And I think if people learned and did the courses and had that healthy respect, I think it would make it a lot easier. I mean, it would make it a lot safer.
Now, in addition to having been named Canada's Athlete of the Year, in addition to being an Officer of the Order of Canada, a 6-time Olympian, a 7-time world champion, what am I missing? There's something else that sets you apart from the majority of people that will comment or give their opinion on Bill C-21, and that is that, Susan, you actually read it. And so when you describe it as ridiculous, I wanted to, and let me, here's a little peek behind the curtain. Here's a little bit of my playbook. I wanted to establish to people that you are a reputable, empathetic, reasonable person. Let's get your analysis. What did you see in those 300 plus pages that sort of raised your eyebrows and not in a good way?
Well, what I think is that they're trying to ban all these guns. And on 307 pages, I wrote down, I think, 10 that I actually recognized. Now I have a limited knowledge. I know shotguns. I don't know anything about rifles, don't know anything about pistols. But I just thought, and that they're trying to ban all these guns. Now, I would like to see all the effort being put on what are we doing about people who use firearms for a crime. See, I think that's where all the effort should be. I think if someone uses a firearm in a crime, the book should be thrown at them. I think we should be looking at gun violence. But what they're doing is they're going after the average Canadian who likes to go out hunting, or our Indigenous Canadians who want to go hunting, or they use it in their life on a daily basis. And I don't think it's answering the question. It's not a solution to the problem. I think concentrating more, as I said, on doing something about when someone uses a firearm in a murder or in a robbery or something like that. If you use a firearm in anything illegal, then the book should be thrown at you.
Did you see when you were reading through the lists, were there firearms that jumped out at you because they're firearms that you own or that you use or that your dad or brothers would have used? Or
what jumped out at me, and some of them I can understand. I mean, I don't think we need a missile launcher.
Sure. I would be inclined to agree.
I personally don't need a missile launcher. And the AR and AK and all those, I don't think you need that to go hunting. I think for the gun collectors, I saw some that, were collector's items that they might have locked up and on display. I mean, it's, I don't see why we have to ban the collector items. I have my little list here, the Benelli Ultralight. I don't have it, but I know some people who use a Benelli to shoot for trap shooting. So some of the other ones I looked up, I mean, none of my guns are on that. none of the guns that I know other trap shooters use for trap shooting would be on it. But, there are a lot of guns that people use for hunting. As I said, I'm not a hunter, so I just don't.
Yeah. No, and I've heard some, like, I really want to, I mean, we tried it with every issue that we tackle here on the show to approach it with, like, an open mind and with reason and with that sort of idea, like, that Stephen Covey idea of seeking to understand. And and I've even heard, and I'm not a hunter, I married into a hunting family. I have a huge amount of respect for people who hunt, a ton of respect,
so do I.
like tons
My
of respect.
hunt.
Yeah, like, I mean, people that fill their freezer and feed their families and the work that goes into it and the tradition and all of that. I'm not cracking on hunting at all. And I've seen some good points. Like, some people will say, well, like, why do you need this, like, rapid fire, big magazine, weapon to hunt? And then, or like, what's reasonable or necessary for hunting? And then I've also seen people argue the point that words like necessary or reasonable are inherently subjective. And so, I just don't know that in a conversation like this, and what I really appreciate about a conversation like this with you, Susan, is that oftentimes these issues become so polarized that people kind of have their minds made up heading into the debate based on who they vote for or based on who their favorite or least favorite politician is. And there's not a lot of people, I think, just like hashing out ideas and trying to sort of dig down to the bottom of what really matters with a specific issue.
Yeah, I think it's a shame when it's just voting for a politician.
Yeah.
Because I think as much as the politicians, as far as I know, do their research, they can't research everything, and this is a big deal. I mean, the problem that I think a lot of us who are competitors are worried about is they're starting with these guns. Are they going to get, the pistols? And already, our pistol shooters that compete are at a disadvantage, and there's restrictions with them. And that's going to happen with the rifle shooters, and happens with the shotgun shooters. And I mean, we have viable international sports. I mean, shooting has been in the Olympics since 1896, the first Olympics.
Wow. There's not a lot of, I mean, if you actually look at the sports, I can't say off the top of my head, maybe you can. I wonder how many of the original sports would still be around. And the Olympics is constantly evolving, isn't it?
Yeah. And, 30 years ago, I could have told you, but I don't know.
Although you competed at the Pan Am Games recently, like you're not retired. Like,
no, I last year I went and I competed in a Grand Prix in France.
Yeah.
A Grand Prix in Spain, and then a big Green Cup competition in Italy.
Do you still have it?
Oh yeah, it gets lost. It's sort of it comes and goes. I mean, I'm just not as consistent, and that drives me crazy, because when I was doing so well and I was winning all the time, I was extremely consistent. But now maybe I'm just consistently average.
Yeah, that's probably really it's probably why, like, hockey players loved playing against Wayne Gretzky, in the last couple of years of his career, because he was still Wayne Gretzky. But maybe he'd lost like half a step, and so they could sort of like maybe the rest of the trap shooting community is thrilled that they maybe have you in their sights now to go win a gold at your expense. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Hey, Doctor.
Well, it's fun going international, because I do have a good reputation, and it's fun to see these young pups coming up and shooting well. And the Carol Cormier from France just won the world championships, and then got the silver medal in the big President's Cup. But anyway, I remember her first year and watching her as a young woman starting to compete, and now she's in her 30s and she won the world championship. So it's very exciting for me to see the development, how these young pups have developed.
Amazing. You talk about how you have a good reputation. That's maybe the biggest understatement we've heard on the show today, maybe this year. Let me ask you this in closing. This is an interesting story. I don't know if you'll have an insight into this or not. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal just a short time ago, as gun sales have reached a high over the past 2.5 years or so through the course of COVID-19 and the pandemic. Groups have been forming to teach women how to handle their new firearms because a new study shows that women are nearly half of new gun buyers in the U.S.
Yeah.
But what does that say to you?
Well, I think it says a couple of things. And I think, well, it says more than a couple. I think one of it is gun clubs. I know at the Vancouver Gun Club, which I'm a member, and the Toronto International Trap and Skeet Club, which I'm a member, we're putting together programs for women to show women how to shoot properly. And I think it's because the sport is becoming more accepting and more open for women. So that's one thing. The other thing I think that's happening in the States is women are discovering the sport of shooting. I mean, it's always in the States, shooting has sort of been more of a domain of the men, where in Canada, it was more open to women. Again, I'm not explaining it well, but I just think women are discovering that, oh, there's this other activity and maybe I should try it. And then the third thing that I think is happening in the States is women want to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And I think probably of the three, this is more the answer. But I think some of them start out with, okay, I'm going to learn how to shoot this gun for protection. And then they learn about the sports and they go, oh, wow. You know, and I see it at the Renton Club here and I see it in Vancouver, you know, where they go, well, I started this, but gee, this is fun. And then they come out and they come out with a lot of them come out with a husband or a boyfriend or something like that. And at least into shotgun. And then once they try it, they go, hey, this is great. And they keep going. And it doesn't matter who's around. They just come out because they're welcome.
Well, alongside Nancy Green and Bianca Andreescu and other all-time Canadian greats, Dr. Susan Nattrass, recipient of Canada's Athlete of the Year in 1981, an absolute legend, as mentioned, 7-time Women's World Champion, 6-time Olympian, and now you can add to your roster, right at the top, a guest on Real Talk. Doctor, it's been so nice to talk to you. Thank you for your time and your expertise. Thank you. Can I just say thank you for taking the time to read 300 pages of a proposed legislation because you wanted to bring to the table informed insight. If every guest of every talk show would do that, think of what a better state this planet would be in.
Well, I have to thank my friend Janice Lawrence in Toronto because I asked her about you, you know, if she knew about your program.
Yeah.
And she sent me everything.
Oh, good.
She just said, you know, read up.
That's great. Well, we sure appreciate it, Susan. It's been we expected it would be a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for doing
my
this.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you very much for asking me.
You bet. That's Dr. Susan Nattrass, one of Canada's literally all-time greatest Olympians. How cool is that, right?
Just incredible. And I think... I mean, we were just talking about plastic straws and how complicated that situation is. I think the gun law, the gun ban, I don't think there's any right answer.
No.
I mean, I'm looking up stats while you're talking to her, and it's like,
what'd you find?
Well, the most recent studies, they show what you think. You know, fewer guns in countries means fewer deaths. But then you've got countries like Switzerland where over 60% of households have guns. There's about 30 guns for every 100 people. And they have fewer deaths too. So they've got not a lot of guns, but more guns than most countries.
Okay.
And it's because they have a unique military system where males, when they reach age of majority, they take some training for military, which involves, you know, gun education and training. And so they have more respect, like she was saying, for guns. So
I thought that was really interesting that she brought up like high school, or I don't know if she used the word mandatory, but bringing up the idea
people should learn more.
Firearms training. There was I wish I could remember the real talker that deserves credit, but an audience member said that last week and suggested that as well.
Yeah.
You know, along the lines of like a career and life management, that COM class or whatever, firearms training. I'm sure that there would be some pushback from people that would
100%.
that, you know, just wouldn't be comfortable with that, and maybe it would be something you could opt out of. You talk about this, and I appreciate this comment from Charlotte in our live chat. She says, finally, an interview where we're talking about this firearm bill C-21 in a reasonable manner. She said, I sure appreciate that. More people need to hear reasonable discussion from Dr. Susan Nattrass. Well, the good news is you can hit like if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube. Of course, you can share our content with somebody that you think might benefit from this. You'll hear hunters, for example, and again, we intentionally wanted to feature an interview that did not just go hunter versus downtown Toronto apartment dweller. Like, I don't think that those are productive conversations. I also think that when you describe a hunter, I mean, there's people from friends of mine that hunt. Some of them are white-collar downtown office tower folks, and some of them live off the grid. It's just a fact. It's a diverse community of people, men and women. But someone will say, like, hunters are not the problem. Hunters are not the ones that are, utilizing firearms in the commission of a crime. And then the counterpoint to that, someone said, well, yeah, hunters aren't the problem until a whole bunch of them show up at Coots and block the border with a plan to shoot RCMP officers. Yeah. That's not a slight at hunters. I mean, that's the Venn diagram overlapping.
But hunters are just people,
regular people.
People have episodes
that work harder than the rest of us.
Hunters with rifles
to get their
might
protein.
Have bad days and do horrible things. Does that mean they're all horrible people? No. But the other thing she said that just hit me was when she said that she believes everyone should learn how to use a safety on a gun, fire a weapon. And when you were talking, like, I'm not a big gun guy. I'm the same way. I don't think I can remember ever holding a gun. Maybe when I was younger, my grandfather has some land, and I remember he used to shoot. He used to hunt. Maybe I held one when I was younger, but that's something I've always wanted to do. And especially the way the world is today, I think everyone should know, just if you're in a situation where you have to pick up a gun, put the safety on, maybe,
or whatever.
I think everyone, when she said that, I was like, that's something I still have to do.
I think
everyone
once.
should learn how to handle a weapon.
Yeah, we went to a range, obviously under supervision, had coaching in the whole 9 yards, and fired a shotgun, exhilarating. Fired a Glock, like a handgun, like one of those sort of police issue handguns. Wild. I mean, holding it's something, man. Like it's almost, I would compare it to, I remember when I was first learning to ride a motorcycle and saddling up on a Yamaha FJ 1100. Ooh. And I rode it for a little bit and then just figured that's enough for me. I don't need it's. I respect the power. I respect the machinery. I respect everything that comes with it and the huge amount of responsibility. But that's just something I didn't personally need in my life. That was my personal choice. So, Real Talkers, here's the deal. We endeavor to provide interviews and opportunities for you to deepen your understanding on issues that impact you either directly or indirectly. And then we ask you to reciprocate that and to send us your thoughts and let us know how you feel about what you're hearing. To potentially suggest a guest that you'd like to hear on the show, talk@ryanjesperson.com is where you can do that. Jason, with an interesting point in our chat, says, in my humble opinion, he says, I think that like sort of you know what happened is the chat just refreshed on me, Johnny, and I lost the comment. But he basically said, like this sort of like rapid fire type firearms place less of an onus on here it is, Jason. In my humble opinion, the larger capacity rifles, the AR, the AK style, make the shooter less likely to take responsibility for every bullet fired. M. Aitken on our live chat says, shooting on horseback, that sport is threatened. Says it's a competitive sport using pistols, which is interesting. I saw some of you talking about when Dr. Nattrass brought up gun collectors. Tim says they collect all sorts of cool guns. Most of them are no good for hunting, but they're cool as heck. And others, suggest that maybe if some guns were to be collected, that maybe something could happen. I don't know what I'm talking about, but maybe remove the firing pin or do something to render them unusable. I don't know. I mean, to state the obvious,
these are all nuances. I don't.
What's going to happen here? No, but what's going to happen here is that if certain guns are outlawed and they're collectibles or they're meaningful to people or what have you, and I understand that you can poke holes like Swiss cheese into this argument, but it is, I think, a talking point, is that you would have otherwise law-abiding citizens who will break the law to keep those firearms.
100%.
And you look at things like the federal long gun registry. I mean, aside from the boondoggle and the money and like everything, I mean, there were a lot of problems with it. Just ask the conservatives. But if you want to look at one of the reasons why I think that the public didn't necessarily buy into that is the acknowledgement that The people that will register their firearms are the law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. And the people that will not register their firearms are, again, we're painting with broad brushes here and making assumptions, and you got to be careful. But for the most part, the people that may approach the law as more of a gray area or something they don't give a rip about in other aspects, like committing crimes.
Yeah. The bans are so complicated. The one thing, though, like, we just have to listen to people. Like, even in Switzerland, like I was just talking about, I just looked it up as early as 2019. They just made stricter gun laws even there where the deaths are low, because about 70% of the population polled said they wanted it. So, I mean, it's complicated everywhere, and I think we should listen to people, but like the ban is just, it's so complicated. And some parts of it, like she said, she was reading through and naming some of the guns and things like that. Some of them don't make sense to me either. Like I was reading some of them that are getting banned, but I mean, what are you going to do? But Canada, again, their gun deaths, not that off from Switzerland in terms of population. We don't have a lot of gun deaths going on here compared to, well, all these other countries, the States, etc.
If you didn't check out our Real Talk Roundtable presented by Urban Timber on Friday, just a few days ago, I encourage you to check it out. Harmon Kendall, Jarrett Campbell, Jenny Adams. Harmon tells a great story about unknowingly essentially
Crown land?
shooting illegally on Crown land, which is a pretty funny story. And then Jarrett gets into it, and Jarrett's a very reasonable guy, and he's a gun owner, longtime hunter, and I really appreciated his perspective. You can hear him make the argument on why he believes. And this guy's not a political sycophant. He's not some sort of a guy that came in wearing the colors of a certain political party across his chest. He's not that type of a guy at all. But he describes C21 and the political posturing around it as cynical politics. If you want to hear him make his argument, you can check that out on our podcast archive, or, of course, you can always find us on YouTube as well. Thanks to everybody who subscribes to the Real Talk Ryan Jesperson YouTube channel. Hey, I'm calling all dog lovers, and for that matter, cat lovers too. There's something for you to check out right now at granddog.ca. That's Grand Dog Essentials quality raw food. You know, their chicken sale we were telling you about was such a huge success through November, so they're keeping the party going. Their newest blend, that's the Doggy Moggy Beef Chicken, is on sale. 20% off the entire month of December. No discount code required. You can also check out their 4-leaf Rover gift bundles available in the shop. You can save 10% off these carefully curated bundles. They're wrapped and ready to share with friends and family. Both our pups, Moses and Monroe, are on the 4-leaf Rover supplements. Moses for his joint health. He's dealing with some tight joint pain as he ages, and we're seeing returns on that investment for his health with the 4-leaf Rover supplements. You can also find the bundles for senior support, like we talked about, the Kibble Bowl Boost, if you're still feeding your dog a mix of raw and kibble, immunity support, allergy support, joint care, healthy skin, or, of course, the basics. If your pup's in their prime, but you just want them to live their best life, you can also find raw cat food under the Shop Now link at granddog.ca. The promo code RealTalk will knock 10% off your first-time order, excluding sale items, delivered to your door in Calgary, Edmonton, and, of course, Central Alberta. And if you're looking at upgrading your ride this winter season, you're sick of sliding around those corners, you're sick of feeling unsafe, why not trust the 4x4 brand that's been trusted by more people in North America than any other brand in history? Of course, I'm talking about Jeep. The Grand Cherokee, North America's best-selling all-time SUV. And then there's that Wagoneer. If that third row of seating is big for your family, you're doing some hauling, you need something to fit the dogs or the snowboards or the golf clubs in the back, you can shop online or in person at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. You'll find them under the Sponsors tab on our website at ryanjesperson.com. Well, I love this. Every Monday, our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy. You can get your free solar quote today at kubyenergy.ca. They allow us an opportunity to focus on the positives, the things that are filling our buckets, the random acts of kindness, the folks that are paying it forward. It's a tradition we call Positive Reflections. And this week, the feature is an email from Brian and Laurie. They said, we wanted to take a time to share a special moment I know our fellow Real Talkers will appreciate. Brian says 10 years ago, Laurie threw out a friendly challenge. She was at the time working at a local credit union to our office. Brian was at Fortis, Alberta. He says the challenge was to see which office could put together the most Christmas food hampers to help support their local food bank in Wainwright, Alberta. Shout out Wainwright. He said, so that was the year 2013 and the seed was planted. Now, because we were a rural office, not even close to where the major company Christmas parties were happening, we were to provide a sum of money. We were given a sum of money to have our own local party, but we as a group decided we would forego the Christmas party, John, and use the money we received to create food hampers, to build hampers for our local food bank. And that year, we were able to supply 24 Christmas food hampers that supplied most of what a family of four would need for a proper holiday meal. And there was no turning back after that. Brian says the next year, we set the bar a little higher. At the end of the day, we supplied 50 hampers plus a cash donation to supply other perishable items to really complete those meals. Brian says, well, it's now 10 years since that challenge was first placed. Year 3, the bar raised even higher from 50 to 60. Any money we had left over after that, we just started donating it to local food banks. He says, I can't stress enough, this has truly become a community event. So many local businesses that have supported this year after year. And to date, because of that simple, friendly challenge, we've supplied our local food bank with 554 food hampers and more than $20,000 cash. He says, it must be said that Fortis, Alberta, and many others supported the event all the years, and it's become a family event. We've watched the little one become a part of this. They may not totally understand, but they're learning what community means, what charity means. Brian says, we know that times are difficult, and everybody's trying to work their way through it. But that said, I'd like to challenge my fellow Real Talkers. If you can give something up, if you're not sure what that might be, for us, it was our Christmas party 10 years ago. It doesn't have to be that much. Take those funds and help somebody in need. I guarantee the feeling that you have will far outweigh the taste of the food or the coffee or the new pair of running shoes. We are our brother and sister's keepers. Brian says, Laurie and I would like to wish you, Ryan, John, and all of our fellow Real Talkers a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. From Brian and Laurie, peace and love. Well, right back at you, and thank you so much for such a wonderful reminder. Shout out to everybody who does the little things in their own communities to ensure that the holidays are happy and healthy for folks in some circumstances they don't even know. You can send us your positive reflection to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's proudly presented by Kuby Renewable Energy. You can find them online at kubyenergy.ca. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we've got 3 mayors from Alberta municipalities right here in the house. They're going to join us around the Real Talk Roundtable. We're going to talk about policing and public safety and all of the other things that happen at that first level, that level of municipal government. This is what matters to people. These are the politicians you see at the gas pumps and the grocery stores. And mark your calendar for the Wednesday edition of Real Talk, where Omar Muallim will talk to us about an explosive story he's been covering about serial abuse at a Calgary junior high school. Because of that story, the province has revoked the Alberta Teachers Association's right to disciplinary action. Omar will bring us all the details. Plus more coming up on Real Talk over the next 4 episodes this week. Thanks for giving us your time. It's the greatest gift you can give. We'll see you soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.